to the Italian Football Podcast.
Let's move on to just a couple of transfer talking points before we finish up. So first of all, coming back to Juventus, Juventus are set to sign Renato Veiga from Chelsea on loan until the end of the season. Juventus will pay a 4.5 million euros loan fee to sign the 21-year-old on a straight loan deal until the end of the current season. There is no buy option included. Chelsea will pay the player's salary. So let's tell you a little bit about Renato Veiga for those that don't know much about him. I spoke to Cameron Smith, who is he's a great journalist I work with at Football Transfers. He's a big Chelsea fan. He knows everything about the club. Now, I asked him about Veiga, just all about his ability, his attributes, his qualities, his kind of his weaknesses. He says that, he's been a backup for Chelsea this season. He hasn't been, Cameron says, hasn't been good enough to start over Cucurella at left back or Colwill at centre back. See, Veiga can play as a centre back or a left back, and he can play in midfield as well. And the only Premier League start he's made this season was as a midfielder, centre midfielder. Cameron says he started the season really well, but he's kind of tailed off in his recent appearances. He's very composed on the ball. He's 6'4". He's got really good physical profile, quick. Weaknesses: he's not got the best defensive anticipation and reading of the game, but he is obviously young and that can improve. He's mostly played at left back for Chelsea, but it seems to be, from what we've learned, that Juventus see him more as a backup at centre back for Gatti and Kalulu. But Cameron says it's difficult to say actually what his best position is because he's only really played in the Conference League and the Carabao Cup. I asked Cameron, because obviously this is a loan deal and there's no option to buy it, I said, what is Chelsea's plans with Veiga? What is his future? Does he have a future at Chelsea? And he says potentially, but maybe not as a starter, maybe as a rotation option. But he says also he could easily be sold for profit in the summer if anybody kind of wants to buy him. And Chelsea kind of value him at 30 to 40 million. But obviously it depends on, how he does at Juventus. That value could change because of that. So I guess, look, we have to see how he does. He's young. He hasn't played much at all in the Premier League. He's only played in the minor cup competitions, so there's not too much to go on there. But my view on this is, ultimately, in terms of the bigger picture, this reflects badly on Juntoli. Obviously, hopefully, he goes and he's a good signing. He helps Juventus get in the Champions League in the top four, and if that happens, then I guess we can say, job done. I guess that's the most pressing concern for Juventus. They need to make sure they're in the Champions League next season. If they don't, it's a total disaster financially, sportingly, and the club. The project is in tatters. Let's just be honest; it's in tatters. So if this signing, Juventus need a centre back, because currently with Danilo going, they currently with Kalulu and Gatti currently have not a single centre backup right now, which is astonishing. So they need a centre back. If he helps, then great. But if we're looking at it in the bigger picture, this reflects badly on Juntoli in terms of, as I've said in the last shows, building this Juventus project to build this new great Juventus. He's had 3 months to sign a centre back, over 3 months, 3.5 months since the injury, the ACL to Bremer. He's known he's needed a centre back. Then, of course, Cabal got injured. He plays at centre-back, so it was even more important. That was in November. The fact that he's scrambling around last minute in the latter stages of the January window to sign a Chelsea reserve on loan, and somebody that they're paying 4.5 million euros for a 4-month loan on a young developing player. It's not a ready-made player. It's a young developing player. 4-month loan, 4.5 million euros. And Juventus, at the end of that, will have no option or obligation. So they're not in control of the player. I think that reflects really badly. It's not a way to build a winning team. I've been critical was very critical on the fact that Giuntoli was considering selling Cambiasso, because I said this is not how you build a winning project. You find your core, you create and you build around the core of players, of which Cambiasso is clearly one of them. You don't sell a player from your core. That's just not how you build a winning team. It's also, if you're trying to build a winning project, you don't pay €4.5 million loan on a young player for 4 months, so you have no control on. It's a poor financial decision, and it's, again, from a sporting point of view, it's not how you grow a squad. And I would say the same for Randall Colomwani, who's going to be made official on Thursday that he's a Juventus player, because PSG have freed up space for him. Colomwani, again, expensive loan for the rest of the season, but Juventus have no option to sign him, no control over the player at the end of the summer. Again, if Colomwani helps Juventus get in the Champions League, then that's really, really important. But if you're building a project, you shouldn't be in a position that Giuntoli has found himself in, that whereby you're scrambling around to get a striker on loan and a young developing centre back on loan, and you're paying money for them and you have no control of them. So it's just for me, it reflects really badly on Giuntoli, and it makes me worry.
Because he put himself in this position. That's the thing. He's put Juventus into this position. His mistakes, his decisions, it's his responsibility. And I understand Elkan, after however many €100 million cash injections, he has a responsibility to his shareholders and be like, enough's enough. Make this work. I can't just keep plowing hundreds of millions of euros in cash injections into this giant black hole and you don't do anything about it. At some point, something has to give.
Something has to give, but how is it financially a good decision to pay €4.5 million loan on a young developing player? €4.5 million loan for 4 months. How is that financially helping the situation?
Because it's better, because it's not, because they have put themselves in this situation. And it's like when people who don't, we watch on TV these shows where people take loan after loan to pay for another loan, and then they take another.
That's exactly what it is. But it's not helping. It's not helping you. It's not helping the situation,
No,
is it? That money that's dead money. You're not going to get any return. It's not like you buy a player and it's a future investment. That's dead money. It's like if you've got if you've got the opportunity to buy a house, but you decide to just continue renting, and then that's dead. That money's dead that you're paying.
Yeah,
to
it
rent.
is dead, but it's like it's not now. The mistakes were not made now. Now is just playing out the cards and trying to minimize the damage. The mistakes were made last summer, when in the investments he made, that were, frankly, except for Kefren Thuram and Di Gregorio, they've been pretty awful, every single one.
No, Kalulu.
Nico Gonzalez has been dreadful. Tom Cook miners we're still waiting on. Douglas Luiz was utterly embarrassing so far in terms of his attitude and performances. So, it is what it is.
Kalulu's been outstanding, but yeah,
Kalulu's been good, but it's not been a good. It's not been a good. If report cards came in for the mercato and how players have done, Giuntoli fails. There's no doubt about that, and it's that simple, and we have to be honest about that.
Yeah, and there's also new reports this morning that Man City are set to make an official bid for Cambiasso by the end of the week. If that happens, then that's a big concern. Are Juventus going to be able to resist? Are they going to be able to hold on to him? Is the decision going to be taken to sell him?
It's a disaster.
It's a total disaster. And you know what else is a disaster? And this goes above Giuntoli's head and predates Giuntoli as well. And this is on Elkan. So I don't want to have anybody say that Elkan's doing a good job. Elkan is the 10 times bigger disaster than Giuntoli. He's I don't even want to say what I want to say about him. Juventus have fallen to 16th place, their worst ever ranking in the Deloitte Money League, which was released today on Thursday, where it ranks the richest clubs in the world based on all their revenue that comes in, match day revenue, commercial revenue, and TV revenue. And Juventus have fallen to 16th place in the table. It's their worst ever ranking. So, I mean, financially, Juventus are completely failing, and we know that all Italian clubs are failing. I mean, if you look at the overall list of the Football Money League, it's really depressing to look at
I don't
where
blame just
Italian clubs
Ilkan.
are.
I blame Agnelli and the way that Juventus were run prior, because just take the shirt sponsor, for example, Jeep. Who owns Jeep? Exor owns Jeep. So that sponsorship deal was essentially an inflated fake one, because it wasn't worth the money they were paid. Now that's gone away because Jeep don't want to or can't afford to pay that kind of money. And then you're standing there with a budget this big, a hole in the budget this big, and you're trying to fill it. And so you can't find it because no one wants to pay that money because it was inflated to begin with. So, you can blame Elkan all you want,
Mm.
but
Well,
this was done before.
I don't
When
think
you build
that's.
a financial house of cards, which Agnelli did, he had success on the pitch. There's no doubt about it. But it was built on a financial house of cards. Now that's come crashing down.
That's the
Sorry.
same. I think. Look, I think that's the same for all Italian clubs. They're all built on sand. I mean, it's quicksand. I mean, they're all they're all failing. They're all, every single year we're falling further down the list. Milan are 13th, Inter are 14th, Juventus are 16th. The fact though that Juventus are below Inter, Milan, and Inter is a huge failing. On no disrespect to those clubs, they're obviously
No,
massive
but it's
historic
not. I
clubs.
think it's more
But
an
what
accurate.
Juventus,
I think it's an accurate representation of what Juventus are actually worth. Again, when your own company, it's the same thing with Fiorentina, Mediacom, with what's his name, Rocco Commisso. That deal is completely inflated. It's not worth that. When he disappears, when Mediacom no longer pumps money in via sponsorships to Fiorentina, they're going to have a hell of a difficult time. Again, this is the thing. There's when you build a financial house of cards, sooner or later that's not sustainable, sooner or later will come crashing down. And that's what's happening to you. This isn't just
well, no,
Elkan.
Juve are lower down because they didn't qualify for the Champions League. But I mean,
Well,
they would be above Milan and
yeah,
Inter now if it wasn't for that. But
yeah.
it's still a huge failing that they're falling that low. As with all Italian clubs, it's depressing to see where they are. In the top 30 richest clubs in top 20 richest clubs in Europe, there's only Milan, Inter, and Juventus, and they're now 13th, 14th, and 16th. I mean, these clubs used to be, even up until 10 years ago,
Top
these clubs were
five,
in the top 10
top five.
or higher, and that's 10 years ago when Serie A was
Mm.
already on the way down, sliding down the table. But Juventus are being run so badly at the moment at the top above Gently to not even have a sponsorship still. I mean, that's
Well,
just embarrassing. It really
yeah,
is.
because they have a budget that, again, that sponsorship deal was inflated to begin with, and when Jeep no longer wants to or is able to
Well, you
pay
get a
that
lower
kind of money.
sponsorship. I mean, it's the same
Yeah,
as
but
many.
it's not the same. You have to get more, and they weren't in a position to find more. That's what I'm talking
Well, then they
about.
go lower. They go lower. It's not.
Yeah,
It's
but
not.
it's not just going lower. You
Well,
need to
it
find
is.
something to fill. It's not just pressing a button, and
You
that's
can't
my
get the
point.
same sponsorship. You go a little bit lower, but you get a bloody sponsorship. You don't get no sponsorship. It's
Well,
ridiculous.
it's the exact same situation that happened at Inter, because they weren't ready for it. It's the same incompetence. It's just happening at Juve. Like, again, this is what I mean. They're all run badly, and I think and they have been for a long time, and it's all been a pyramid scheme, is my opinion of it. It's my honest opinion that it's been a giant pyramid scheme. And now that's come crashing down, and reality bites. It's that simple. And
Yeah.
whether it's Elkan, Elkan or Agnelli or whatever, Italian football is not run well financially.
Mm.
It's a financial mess.
Juventus are pushing on half 50% of what Tottenham make a year. I mean, that's
Congratulations.
just that just says it all.
Congratulations.
I don't even want
I
to
mean,
dwell on that.
what do you want me to say? Like, it's embarrassing, and it's been embarrassing for a long time. And I don't think it's just one person's fault. I think what you saw under Agnelli was that, at least you saw under Agnelli, was, even though it was a financial house of cards, you saw results, and we won. You won 9 Scudetti in a row. You were 2 Champions League finals, and then he got arrogant, and the rest, we saw what happened 2 seasons ago when it all crashed. And now we're seeing the remembrance, the aftershock of that. The issue with Giuntoli, though, is that the problem is, when you have zero margins of error, failing on 80-90 million euro signings combined with Cook Miners and Douglas Luiz to date have been failures. That doesn't look good. That you can't afford to do that, and that's why you're looking at selling Cambiasso, because you're desperate. You're completely desperate, and you're weak. And this is this is a cutthroat business. When people sense weakness and blood in the water, they kill you.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that if that bid comes in, that John Elkann is stuck in Davos with the World Economic Forum, and he doesn't. He's too busy.
With Gary Neville,
he's too busy.
the man of the people,
with
Gary Neville in the World
yeah.
Economic Forum in Davos.
Gary Neville and all the other
Yeah.
lizards. Yeah.